Recognizing reality. Breaking through denial. A promotion arrives on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered through an email marked high importance, and a follow-up Slack message from your manager asking if you have 15 minutes to talk. Your pulse quickens, not with excitement exactly, but with something closer to relief mixed with vindication. The salary bump is meaningful, the title change unmistakable. When you tell your partner that evening, they hug you and suggest celebrating at that restaurant you've been saying is too expensive for a random weeknight. For approximately 72 hours, the chronic tightness in your shoulders disappears completely. But what happens next isn't the triumphant continuation you expected. The recognition you fought for creates its own gravity, bending your perception of what came before and what should come after. You start viewing the previous years of frustration as necessary preparation, a gauntlet you successfully navigated rather than time you'll never recover. The narrative snaps into place with satisfying clarity. You paid your dues, you persevered, you earned this. Anyone questioning whether you should have left earlier becomes someone who doesn't understand how careers actually work. The promotion validates everything, so you accept. Who walks away from advancement? Your colleagues congratulate you. Your family celebrates you. And the decision feels inevitable. Privileges aren't something to throw away. The first few weeks in the new role feel like learning a different language while pretending you're fluent. You sit in meetings where acronyms fly past that you're supposed to already know, nodding at appropriate intervals while frantically searching for context clues. The imposter sensation isn't new. You felt it climbing the previous rungs, but the stakes feel exponentially higher now. Mistakes at your old level were expected, even endearing. Mistakes here suggest you were promoted beyond your capability. You try not to compare yourself to others, but how else will you know where you stand? The mental calculus becomes automatic. She closed that deal faster. He seems more confident in presentations. They already know all these people. What you actually need is intensive learning and development, not just through the company's programs, but through your own deliberate practice. Finding time feels impossible, but skipping this foundation will only make the discomfort last longer. You're not yet at the level you want to be, but this promotion is a significant step in that direction. Now you sit in meetings with senior leaders and encounter topics you didn't even know existed before. Of course, your responsibility also becomes greater, as do your tasks. These responsibilities often come with increased pressure to perform, to lead, and to innovate, frequently without a clear roadmap for how to achieve these new expectations. The first signs of insecurity appear. You wonder if you're truly up to the role, but your appearance doesn't show it. You might even let your ego compensate, projecting confidence you don't feel. You probably don't realize this is just a cover-up for your feelings of inadequacy. 6 months pass, maybe even a year, and you've picked up the slack. You're doing your job correctly. But is correctness what you were striving for? In that fight to meet expectations, the initial fire disappeared somewhere, and now you have the feeling that you're just doing the job. It seems that many of your colleagues feel the same way. The climb shouldn't be this hard anymore, but it still is. You try to understand what other colleagues at your level are doing and learn from them. Sometimes you feel like an intruder who doesn't belong there, battling an incessant feeling that no matter how hard you try, someone else is always a few steps ahead. The initial support from your bosses, once a source of comfort, also seems to have waned, leaving you to navigate these challenges with less guidance than before. Or maybe your colleagues are deliberately withholding information, protecting their own positions. Ignoring reality becomes easier than confronting it. You have no clear sense of purpose or belonging anymore. Maybe you're just imagining it all. These temporary feelings will surely fade quickly, and you'll return to your career with full strength and enthusiasm. You don't want to admit to yourself that you can't remember the last time you received genuine praise. But there's no shortage of criticism. You tell yourself this is normal. The honeymoon is over, and the results are self-evident. No one praises you for every step you take anymore. It's like small children learning to walk. Everyone encourages and praises them. When they walk, it becomes something completely normal that no one even mentions. You need to be emotionally prepared for this shift, especially if you're someone who thrives on external validation. You are an optimist by nature, and you don't easily let negative thoughts get to you. You avoid colleagues who bring bad energy and try to see the positive in everything. Those bitter people just want to poison you and slow down your progress. But maybe these bitter people were once full of energy too, before the toxic environment destroyed them. Try to find out their story. Listen and objectively assess their reasons. You can learn something from everyone. That's something you should never forget. Although it's clear to you that the support and understanding of superiors have become very rare, you rationalize it as a normal part of the process. Maybe they just want to toughen you up? Colleagues are in a good mood only on Fridays, if they show up at all. But you don't connect it with work. They must have private problems. You ignore the warning signs. That's not your level of concern. Not yet. The patterns don't announce themselves with clarity. They accumulate in the margins of your awareness like sediment, each instance too small to warrant immediate attention. You snap at your partner over something trivial on a Wednesday evening and attribute it to poor sleep. Your jaw aches on Thursday morning from grinding your teeth all night, but you've been stressed before. Friday afternoon, you realize you've been staring at the same email for 11 minutes without actually reading it. But everyone has unfocused days. Then Sunday arrives, and the dread returns with such physical intensity that you can't dismiss it as coincidence anymore. Your body has been sending signals for months, maybe years. The headaches that arrive precisely at 2 p.m. every workday. The way your stomach clenches when you see your manager's name in your inbox. The exhaustion that sleep never quite resolves. You've been explaining these away individually, treating each symptom as its own isolated problem rather than recognizing the pattern they form together. But patterns require you to step back far enough to see the whole picture. And stepping back means confronting what you've been working so hard to avoid. Recognition doesn't feel like enlightenment, it feels like failure. This is the first phase where you really see the problems. It's crucial to react correctly, but few people manage to do that. I was no better at it either. Disappointment is one of the most intense feelings. It would be right to start with new approaches immediately, but that's probably not on your mind right now because your energy level is at rock bottom. You slowly realize that your efforts aren't bearing fruit. No matter how hard you try, it seems like you've reached your limit. You realize that you can no longer progress in the normal way, and other options absolutely don't come to mind. All this feeling of helplessness is draining your energy a little. No one else notices it yet, but you know that you're no longer giving your maximum. Not because you don't want to, but because you simply don't have the strength anymore. That feeling makes you angry, because you're someone who has always given 100%. How did you let external circumstances affect you so much? If your work isn't recognized and rewarded, you decide that the only way to reward yourself is to slow down and reduce your contribution. The lunch break stretches 5 minutes longer. Coffee has gone from 1 to 5 cups a day. You drift from table to table because you have something important to clarify with all your colleagues, and the day somehow passes. But you don't feel good doing it. The act of rebellion gives you a certain satisfaction. But that's not you. You want to create, you want to progress, and now you've descended to laziness. Truly beneath your level. Surely there must be another way. This phase, in my opinion, is the worst. This is where you betray your real values out of sheer resignation. But it's also a very important phase. This is where you start thinking about alternatives. So, as wrong as it may seem, don't try to skip this step. You gather courage. You look for the right words to present your decision to your boss. You even put all the problems on paper to show more clearly that your decision is justified. While reading your own list, you think again if that's enough to give up. You postpone the decision for a few more days. You wait until you're completely sure. And then you arrange a meeting with the boss to tell him your intentions. You've reached the point where the decision feels final. You must abandon this ship. Not because the ship is sinking, but because you have completely sunk. At the meeting with the boss, you calmly present your reasons. You're no longer nervous because you know that your decision is final. In the beginning, wonder and surprise come. The boss didn't expect it, or at least he pretends convincingly. Then he shows understanding, lists your contributions to the company and your qualities. At the end, he asks you what could convince you to stay. The first topic is money. Most of them think that a little more money can solve the problem. Well, then a few weeks of paid vacation, you must be tired and not thinking rationally. If that doesn't convince you, they offer you a big, important project where you can express yourself and make a contribution that cannot be overlooked. And that's the point where many give up and stay, because that's what we wanted, right? Recognition and the ability to move forward. Maybe that really solves the problem. Except it doesn't solve the problem. It postpones recognition for another cycle. The raise becomes another sunk cost. The project becomes another commitment to honor. And 6 months from now, you'll be back in the same place, only with more reasons why leaving feels impossible. Breaking through denial requires confronting the gap between what you tell yourself and what your body already knows. The patterns are there. The question is whether you're ready to stop explaining them away. Honest self-assessment. Values clarification doesn't happen in the abstract. It happens when you stop long enough to notice the gap between what you claim matters and where your hours actually go. Most people can recite their values on command. Family, creativity, growth, authenticity. But living them requires something harder than articulation. It requires looking at your calendar, your bank statements, your energy levels across a typical week, and asking whether the life you're building reflects what you say you care about. Pull up your calendar for the past month. Count the hours in each category. Work meetings, commute, family time, creative projects, learning, rest. Write the totals down. Now, write your top 5 values. Does the distribution of your time reflect those values? Or does it reflect someone else's priorities that you've internalized as your own? This isn't about judgment, it's about data. A marketing director, for instance, listed creativity as her core value, but spent 47 hours weekly in approval meetings for campaigns she didn't design, created by a team she didn't trust, for products she didn't use. When she finally tracked where her time went, the number that startled her wasn't the meeting hours. It was the 2 hours per week she spent doing anything remotely creative. 2 hours out of 60. Her calendar told a story her resume never would. Take the notebook where you've been documenting your patterns, the morning ratings, the physical responses, the justifications you circled. Open to a fresh page. At the top, write this question. If I were advising my closest friend in this exact situation, knowing everything I know, what would I tell them to do? Write your answer without stopping for 10 minutes. Don't soften it. Don't hedge. Don't explain why they should understand the complications. Just write what you'd actually say if someone you loved was living your life. When you finish, read it back. Notice the gap between what you'd tell them and what you're willing to do yourself. That gap is where your justifications live, but it's also where your clarity resides. The advice you'd give someone else reveals what you already know but haven't been willing to face. This isn't about being harsh with yourself. It's about recognizing that you often see other people's situations more clearly than your own, because you're not carrying their fear, their sunk costs, their identity attachments. That clarity you extend to others, you deserve it too. Now, it's time to move beyond reflection and into action. Address your doubts not with fear, but with concrete evidence and deliberate steps. Gather evidence through informational interviews. Schedule 3 informational interviews this month with people doing work that interests you. These aren't job interviews, they're conversations. Ask them how they got there, what skills mattered most, and what they wish they'd known earlier. You're not committing to anything, you're simply testing whether the wall you've built in your mind is as solid as it feels, or if it's constructed primarily of assumptions you've never questioned. Track your capabilities with specificity. Create a spreadsheet with 3 columns: skill, current level, and evidence. Under skill, list what you're developing. Under current level, be brutally honest: novice, intermediate, or advanced. Under evidence, document what proves that assessment. "I think I'm good at this" doesn't count. Instead, use completed projects, measurable outcomes, and feedback from people whose judgment you trust. Update this spreadsheet monthly. Watch the evidence column fill in. If you can't add evidence for 3 consecutive months, it's information, not a judgment. It tells you where your effort is going and whether it's producing the results you need. Develop genuine expertise in one area. Choose one area where you want to develop genuine expertise. Not surface-level familiarity across 5 domains, but deep knowledge in one. Enroll in courses, attend workshops, and read extensively on that topic. Being among the top tier in one area will always take you further than mediocrity across multiple areas. The market rewards depth, as true expertise often commands a premium. Warner, 2023. Test new ventures before committing. If you're considering starting your own venture, test the ideas and strategy for 3 to 6 months before you leave your current situation. People often underestimate how many steps and how much sustained effort entrepreneurship requires. Lido, 2022. This usually means working significantly more than before, at least initially, and often for uncertain returns. Build a network deliberately. Attend 2 industry events this quarter, not to hand out business cards, but to have real conversations. Follow up with 3 people within 48 hours. Mention something specific from your conversation. Offer something helpful without asking for anything in return. Relationships built this way become resources not because you networked strategically, but because you connected authentically. A crucial step in the process of letting go involves a clear-eyed recognition of reality. This means honestly assessing your current situation, stripping away wishful thinking or emotional biases. By doing so, you can objectively weigh the true costs of remaining in a situation, relationship, or pursuit against the potential benefits and opportunities that could arise from choosing to leave. This rational evaluation is essential for making informed decisions that align with your long-term well-being and emotional freedom. Conclusion. When you first picked up simple steps to let go, you might have felt a deep, unsettling friction. Perhaps a relationship had run its course, a career path felt increasingly like a gilded cage, or a personal project had become a monument to stubbornness rather than passion. You knew, deep down, that something wasn't working, yet the thought of walking away felt utterly paralyzing. We began this journey by peeling back the layers of that paralysis, understanding that it wasn't a flaw in your character, but a powerful, ancient tangle of psychological forces designed to keep you precisely where you were, even if where you were was no longer serving your highest good. Now, you stand at a different vantage point, equipped with not just insight, but a map to navigate the very terrain that once seemed impassable. Throughout these pages, we've dismantled the myth that persistence is always a virtue, exposing how cultural narratives often conflate quitting with failure, creating an almost impenetrable psychological resistance. We explored how our identity becomes inextricably linked to our commitments, making departure feel like a loss of self rather than a liberation. You've seen the insidious ways initial excitement can blind us to future realities, how motivation can shift from intrinsic purpose to external validation, and how even the allure of promotion can become another, more expensive, layer of entrapment. We delved into the relentless pressure of comparison, that endless, soul-sapping scroll through curated highlight reels that distorts our sense of worth and trajectory. But crucially, we also learned that these forces, while formidable, are not unconquerable. The path forward always begins with a clear, honest assessment of your reality, separating what is from what you wished it to be. Imagine a future, not distant, but within reach, where your days are no longer defined by Sunday dread or a quiet, gnawing dissatisfaction. Envision waking up with a genuine sense of purpose, not because you're performing for external validation, but because your choices are deeply aligned with who you truly are. Picture the relief of shedding the weight of shoulds and musts that were never truly yours, replaced by the invigorating lightness of authentic desire. This isn't a fantasy. It's the inevitable outcome of applying the principles of intentional letting go. You will move through your life with a newfound clarity, making decisions from a place of strength, not fear. The energy you once poured into maintaining unsustainable situations will be liberated, ready to fuel endeavors that genuinely excite and fulfill you. Your identity will no longer be dictated by a job title or a relationship status, but by the quiet confidence of a person who honors their truth, even when it demands courage. That liberated self, unburdened by past attachments and future anxieties, is ready to emerge. The true power of this book doesn't lie in understanding, but in doing. Your first, most crucial action step is to immediately engage with the honest self-assessment from Chapter 6. Take out a notebook right now, or open a digital document, and for the next 3 days, track your energy levels and emotional responses to the situations you're questioning. Specifically, note those moments of jaw-clenching tension, the Sunday evening dread, or the sudden bursts of resentment. Beside each observation, write down the specific trigger. Begin to compare your calendar hours against your stated values. Where are you truly spending your time versus where you say your priorities lie? And then, research one concrete alternative to your current situation. This isn't about committing to leave tomorrow, but about making visible what your body already knows and what your mind has resisted seeing. This single, tangible step will create the necessary friction for change, shifting you from passive observer to active architect of your future. Remember, this process is not about achieving perfect clarity overnight or making a flawless exit strategy. There will be moments of doubt, setbacks, and the uncomfortable whispers of old fears. But you now possess the analytical tools and the psychological framework to navigate these challenges. You understand that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to act alongside it. Trust the data you've gathered, trust the quiet knowing in your gut, and trust your capacity to recalibrate. Each small step of honest assessment, each brave conversation, each strategic inquiry is a victory. Progress, not perfection, is the true metric of success on this path. You are not alone in this journey, and you are far more resilient and resourceful than the old narratives might have led you to believe. The power to choose, to realign, and to construct a life that truly resonates with your deepest self is now firmly in your hands. Ultimately, letting go isn't an act of surrender or failure. It is an act of profound self-respect. It's the courageous decision to reclaim your energy, honor your truth, and open your hands to make space for what is truly meant for you. The things we cling to, however familiar, can often be the very anchors holding us back. Release the anchor and watch how freely you begin to sail,